So continuing with classification, what we're going to do today is learn how to use a dichotomous key. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to identify a species using a dichotomous key. Before we get started, I want you to look at the do now question and jot down an idea. Why is it important to divide things based on characteristics? Alright, so some ideas that you may have come up with include making it easier to find out a species name, for example. So previously during the first lesson in this chapter, I had mentioned thinking of classification like a grocery store in the Pear Deck slides, because it makes classification in a grocery store makes finding items much easier. So for example, if you go shopping in the grocery store, you have all your fruits and vegetables together in one section, you have all your frozen foods together in one section, you have your snack foods in another section, cereal in another section. It makes life that much easier. The same goes for different species, especially when it comes to identification. Now, a lot of identification goes by physical characteristics, although genetic material is very important nowadays. But for this purpose and the purpose of the dichotomous key, we will be using physical characteristics. So dichotomous keys are called such because the dichotomous key divides into two parts based on physical characteristics. So dichotomous keys are used to separate organisms and objects based on shared physical characteristics. So you're going to be given in a dichotomous key a set of yes or no questions that will lead you from one group to another group of questions to another group of questions. Looking at the objects in this picture, I want you to take about 30 seconds to list some things that can describe the objects to the left and how they are similar or different. Alright. When it comes to a dichotomous key, the idea is to continue splitting away from a very general physical characteristic to more defined physical characteristics as you move from the beginning of the key to the end of the key, to the point where you're going to be able to identify any organism that you have in front of you, whether in nature or by picture. So you have to continue to split as you have each group presented to you, in at least each group of questions. So similarities and differences in some of the pictures that you saw here. Some are long and have a tube shape, such as the pen, the pencil, and the highlighter. Some are made of plastic, some are made of metal. You also have a highlighter. You can go by color. There are so many different physical characteristics that you could have used to identify these different materials in front of you. So before you even make a dichotomous key, it's easy to try and just make a spider diagram or a spider key to help you in creating one, although this lesson will be about just figuring out how to use the dichotomous key. So for long tubular shapes, that's our very general idea. And then we can split off and talk about being constructed from plastic or constructed from a material other than plastic, which would be the pencil because that was made of wood. Now for the ones that are made of plastic, you can split again and go with gray or green, which was the highlighter, or blue and clear, which was the pen. Then you had your objects that were non-tubular shaped. So you can again split by going on about color, in which the black and silver were the pencil sharpener and the silver color was the paperclip. And from that point on, you're able to then build your key starting with your general ideas and working your way down to the more individual physical characteristics, such as the materials and the colors that these objects were made of. So let's say I wanted to identify this object right here. I would go to number 1 and I would say a long tubular shaped object or a short non-tubular object. Well, I'm going to say yes to letter A because it's long and tubular shaped, and it's telling me to go to number 2. So for number 2, constructed from plastic or constructed from material other than plastic. Well, the pen is definitely constructed from plastic, so I'm going to say yes to letter A again, and now I'm going to go to number 3, where I'm being asked gray and green or blue and clear. Well, it's a no for gray and green, but for blue and clear, I'm being given that this is a pen. Now, this is a very obvious version of a dichotomous key. The ones that you're going to be working with have to do with animals and other organisms. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go on and do another example with fictional characters. And those characters are called Norns. So let's take a look here. We have 7 different questions to go by, where either you're going to be answering yes or no. So the first set of characteristics is about whether the ears of these characters are pointed around. The second one has to do with having a tail versus no tail. The third group of characteristics is about the ears being pointed upwards or downwards. The fourth characteristic has to do with waving behavior or having hairy tufts on the ears. The fifth characteristic that continue to diverge and separate the Norns is going to be engage in waving behavior, does not engage in waving behavior. The characteristics for 6 are has hair on the head and has no hair on the head. And 7 is has a tail versus has no tail / aggressive. So these are the characters that we're going to be identifying. I only chose 3 of them as an example. So we're going to start with 1, then we're going to go to 2, and then we're going to go to 3. So we're going to start with our first character over here. And our first characteristics are has pointy ears versus has rounded ears. Well, our first one has pointing ears, so I'm going to say yes and go to 3. Now I'm being told ears pointed up or downwards. Well, this Norn has ears pointed upwards, so again, now I'm going to go to 5. Engages in waving behavior? Does not engage in waving behavior. Well, our Norn has their hands over their mouth, so does not engage in waving behavior. So I'm going to go to 6. Has hair on the head or has no hair on the head? Well, this Norn has hair on their head, so this would make this Norn beverless. Let's go on to our second one. This is our second Norn. We can see again that they have pointed ears, and we see waving behavior, and we see the ears are pointed downwards. So let's see in which direction the dichotomous key takes us. So as I said before, has pointed ears, so I'm going to say yes and go to number 3 again. Instead though, this time the ears are not pointed upwards, this time they're pointed downwards, so I'm going to go to 4. Engages in waving behavior? Actually, yes, this Norn is waving, so this Norn is called Dallas. So we're going to go on to our last example. And in our last example, we have a Norn that again has pointed ears. This time they're pointed up, and let's get started. So has ears pointed ears? Yes, going to go to number 3 again. Ears pointed upwards or ears pointed downwards? Well, our third Norn has ears pointed upwards, so I'm going to go back to number 5. Engages in waving behavior? Or it does not engage in waving behavior? Well, this Norn is not waving, so we're going to go to 6. Has hair on the head versus has no hair on the head. Well, this Norn does not have hair on the head. That would be an issue if they did, because then we would have gotten the same answer for 2 Norns, which is not possible in this case. Has no hair on the head, go to 7. Has a tail, or has no tail and is aggressive. Well, this Norn doesn't have a tail, and on top of it looks pretty angry, so is aggressive, so our third Norn is Rageous. Now, what you're going to be doing is there's a Google form, and on that Google form you have a different dichotomous key, and you're going to have pictures of different types of woodpeckers, which are types of birds. You're going to work your way through the dichotomous key, and you're going to identify bird 1, bird 2, bird 3, bird 4, bird 5, and bird 6. And you're going to type their scientific names, which you just practiced using in the iExcel that you completed yesterday. And you're going to submit the Google form when you're done for review, and I will grade it and return your score to you as soon as possible. If you have any questions, I will try to stop into office hours between 1 and 1:30. Unfortunately, I have a video meeting for science at 1:30 and will not be able to stay as long. Otherwise, you can leave a comment for me or send me an email, and I hope you guys have a really great rest of your day.